should start, first of all, with the president's decision to delay by 1 month imposing steel and aluminum tariffs on the Europeans, on Canada, on Mexico. You say this is better than to go forward with it, but what can get done in a month?
Well, maybe some other issues. I mean, what the White House seems not to get is linkage, that getting into a trade war with Europe, and I think the EU threatened a trade war over this, might take a few of the brain cells away from figuring out what to do on the Iran deal, away from figuring out when, how to negotiate with North Korea. Those are just maybe 3 things on the agenda. And I think this trade war is totally unnecessary. I don't think tariffs on European goods makes any sense now, if it ever did. And I frankly hope that in a month he decides to put this off indefinitely. He needs to make a decision because the markets are uncertain, and I think market uncertainty will continue for this whole month.
A lot of people we've been talking to here at the conference say that geopolitics and global politics is talked about on the sidelines here. Couldn't the administration say that it's by holding off and kind of holding the tariffs over the Europeans' head, that they're getting leverage here for what they need when it comes to Iran, when it comes to North Korea?
Well, I actually think the opposite. I think they're getting the Europeans angry, and doing this side deal on Iran that Trump wants, that I think would be fine, is to them not on the top of their priority list. So I think he's making the Europeans angry. I mean, both Macron and Merkel came to see him last week. I think that was very respectful. And he and Macron seem to have a bromance. And I don't think this is helpful to either leader. In addition to that, the real trade tariff issue, or the real trade issue we need to be focused on, is intellectual property and China's abuse. And that's where the brain cells should be going, and we need Europe's support for that. Meanwhile, I read in the newspapers today that China is feeling increasingly confident that it can withstand U.S. pressure and may not do the things that are really crucial, if you want what I think, but really crucial to a better trading regime in the world for the United States.
So let's take one of those issues. Let's just take North Korea, for instance. What's your best advice for the White House, for the president, as he gets ready for his meeting with Kim Jong-un?
Stop tweeting. He was the one who lectured Obama about don't do everything in public, do things behind the scenes. I think Mike Pompeo will make a very strong Secretary of State and is making some good moves on the world stage. I delegate a lot to Pompeo and Mattis and prepare things, but I would be enormously skeptical that anything like denuclearization is at all possible. It's an aspiration, but I don't think Kim Jong-un, who wants regime survival over everything, will ever give up his nukes. And I also don't think the U.S. will or should give up a nuclear umbrella for our allies in Asia, not just South Korea, but Japan and others, nor should we remove all of our troops from South Korea. So we should, in increments, do some things that would be mutually helpful. Taking down the loudspeakers at the DMZ, which I gather South and North Korea just did so that the propaganda noise stops, is a good first move. But we should work with allies. Let's say that again. Allies in Asia and Europe. As Macron said last week, he said, don't make war on your allies.
That's a pretty long to-do list there for the president. A lot of the people that we talk to here say that the president is right to confront China about its trade practices, to create conditions that are more favorable to U.S. products, services, and intellectual property, as you mentioned. However, they take issue with his approach, which is the tweeting, the bullying, the threats. What is the way forward then?
Carefully. He's got a good team. Mnuchin was here yesterday, and I thought spoke very quietly and confidently. He's a smart guy. I think we make a mistake when we see everything in bilateral terms, including trade deficits. Trade deficits need to be seen across the world, yes, in context. And they have a lot to do with savings and investment, not just a balance sheet, a two-dimensional balance sheet. So I think that China needs to be, or I would say, China is risen. China is an economic powerhouse in its own right. China needs to be seen as a competitor, but not as an enemy. And, oh, by the way, discarding TPP, I thought, was a big mistake. What it denied us was a better trading arrangement with others in Asia, which would have created a stronger bulwark against China expansion. We still play in Asia, but TPP is now an Asian idea, not one where the U.S. sets the standards.
Now, it seems like North Korea, Iran, Russia dominate our attention, generate the most headlines. Are they the most urgent foreign policy issues? Is there anything that we're missing that could have the potential to become the bigger issue tomorrow?
Well, geopolitics is back. I said that yesterday at this conference, and we need to understand where China fits, where Russia fits. Russia has a much weaker economy, and as John McCain used to say, it's a gas station in search of a country, but the price of oil's gone down, so it's scrambling. But Putin uses whatever levers he's got. And we need to understand all that, and we still need to keep an eye on terrorism, which was our focus for the last 15 years, since 9/11, and is back. I mean, we have not eradicated terrorism in the world.